Let's be honest, AAA gaming's in a bit of a weird place right now. Games are more expensive than ever to make, but somehow they feel emptier than ever before. Studios are chasing trends instead of just vision, and every other release is loaded with microtransactions, battle passes, pre-order bonuses, and day one patches for bugs that should have been caught months earlier. We are just regressing. Live service models dominate headlines, but most of them fail to maintain player interest for more than a few weeks. It's no wonder gamers are feeling burned out and are tired of repetitive sequels, tired of $70 price tags, tired of games that prioritize shareholder value over creative expression. But in the middle of all that noise, something beautiful is happening. Something honest. Something passionate. Indie games. I've touched on this in a lot of other videos I've made, but I wanted to dedicate a full video to this topic. Indie games are the beating heart of gaming right now. They're risky, raw, and deeply personal. They're made by small teams, sometimes just one person, with limited budgets, but big ideas. And they're not only holding the industry together, they're pushing it forward. In this video, I'm going to explore why indie games are saving gaming, creatively, culturally, and economically. We'll look at where they came from, how they've changed, and what makes them more important than ever. Let's dive in. To understand why indie games matter so much today, we need to look at where they came from. Back in the 1990s and early 2000s, the gaming industry was dominated by a handful of large publishers. If you weren't backed by a big studio or didn't have a retail deal, your game wasn't getting seen. Period. Console certification processes were expensive. Physical distribution was a logical nightmare. And digital storefronts didn't really exist at the time. But with the rise of the internet, and especially platforms like Steam, itch.io, and later, Epic Games and EA Play and Ubisoft Connect, that changed everything. Games like Braid, Castle Crashers, and Super Meat Boy helped kickstart the indie boom in the late 2000s. They weren't just good for indie games, they were great games. Full stop. They proved that small teams could compete with the big dogs. Fast forward to today, and indie games are everywhere. From critical darlings like Hades and Celeste to viral sensations like Among Us and Vampire Survivors. The indie scene is no longer the underdog. It's a core pillar of the industry. One of the biggest reasons indie games are thriving is creative freedom. When you're working under a AAA publisher, everything is about risk mitigation. Developers have to deal with executive notes, marketing checklists, focus groups, monetization strategies. Every decision has to justify itself financially. That's why so many big games feel the same. They're all open-world action RPGs with skill trees and crafting systems and live service elements. It's not that the developers lack talent, not at all, and we saw this with Expedition Obscure 33, I think that's what it's called. Those were former AAA developers that just decided to go open their own studio because what they were doing at Ubisoft or wherever they were working at was boring. And it's boring because the system itself punishes experimentation. But indie devs? They could do whatever they want. Want to make a game where you run a cozy coffee shop in a post-apocalyptic wasteland? Go for it. Want to explore the emotional impact of grief through a 2D platformer? Totally doable. Want to make a deck-building roguelike set inside a sentient computer virus? There's probably 3 of those already. This one especially. This freedom results in games that are personal, passionate, and full of weird, wonderful ideas. Games like Undertale, which flipped RPG tropes on their head with pacifist mechanics and fourth-wall breaking storytelling. Return of the Obra Dinn, which turned insurance fraud into one of the most compelling detective puzzles ever made. Papers, Please, which got adapted into a short film, it was that good. A dystopian bureaucracy simulator that somehow made stamping passports an emotionally devastating experience. These games don't exist to chase trends. They exist to express something. That honesty shines through. And players notice. Another reason indie games shine? Constraints. Big studios often have unlimited resources, huge teams, massive budgets, and years of development time. That sounds like a good thing, but it often leads to bloat. Features get added because there's time to add them. Worlds get bigger just to be bigger. More isn't always better. Indie devs, by contrast, have to work within limits. They have to be clever. They can't afford to spend years building a photorealistic world, so they focus on tight mechanics, unique art styles, and engaging gameplay loops. that often hold up longer than AAA realistic art style boring bloat games do. Some of the best gameplay systems of the past decade have come from indie games. The time loop mechanics in Outer Wilds, the precision platforming of Celeste, the minimalist storytelling of Journey. Constraints breed creativity. They force developers to focus on what matters most, and often that results in tighter, more focused experiences than you'll find in a 100-hour AAA RPG. Now let's talk money. Indie games are far more accessible, not just to make, but to buy. A typical AAA game now is skyrocketing in price. I don't even want to report on the current price of these things because they're just going up by the month at this point. At $100 games in Canada. Add in deluxe editions, season passes, and battle passes, and you're looking at $100+ just to play the full game. And that's assuming it works on day one, which is a gamble at this point. Indie games? You could pick up gems like Hollow Knight, Slay the Spire, or Dead Cells for under $20. Heck, you could probably get all three of these for under $20 total, sometimes under $10, and often they offer more replayability and satisfaction than their AAA counterparts. For players on a budget, indie games are a godsend. They offer massive value for money, and because the teams are smaller, they can often fix issues faster, communicate more directly with their players, and make changes based on real feedback, not just quarterly earnings reports. Plus, from a developer's perspective, the barriers to entry have never been lower. With tools like Unity, Godot, and Unreal Engine freely available, anyone with passion and time can build something incredible. Indie games don't just build audiences, they build communities. Because indie devs are often active on social media, streaming platforms, and Discord, the relationship between developer and player is way more personal. You're not talking to a faceless corporation, you're talking to the creator. This connection fosters loyalty, excitement, and a sense of ownership. Players feel like they're part of the journey, not just customers. Crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter and Patreon have made it possible for fans to support their favorite devs directly, sometimes years before the game even launches. We've seen this with Stardew Valley, which was developed by a single person and has a thriving modding scene and dedicated fanbase to this day. Or RimWorld, where the community actively shapes the way the game evolves over time. And let's not forget Among Us. The game was largely ignored when it first launched, but thanks to streamers, TikTok, and word of mouth, it exploded into one of the biggest cultural phenomena of the pandemic era. That kind of growth is only possible when you're agile, connected, and listening to your community. The indie scene is also far more inclusive. Big studios often play it safe, not just creatively, but culturally. Representation's still catching up, and many stories just aren't being told. Indie games are different. They give marginalized voices a platform. They explore underrepresented themes, cultures, and experiences. Games like If Found, a beautiful narrative game about identity, memory, and acceptance. A Short Hike, which captures the joy of exploration and self-discovery in a simple but moving way. Spiritfarer, which gently explores grief and letting go in a way that's both heartfelt and hopeful. These stories matter. They enrich the medium, and they remind us that games aren't just entertainment, they're art. Let's not pretend the AAA industry is doomed. It still produces amazing work. Games like Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, and Tears of the Kingdom show what's possible with big budgets and bold vision. But for every Elden Ring, there are 5 Redfalls. Games released too early, with too many bugs and too little soul. That's why indie games are saving gaming. They remind us what games can be, not just big, but meaningful, not just pretty, but personal, not just profitable, but playable. As more players grow disillusioned with bloated releases and predatory monetization, they're turning to games made with care, with creativity, with love, and that's the future we should want. So, are indie games saving gaming? Absolutely. They're keeping creativity alive. They're giving voice to new generations of creators. They're proving that great games don't need big budgets, just big ideas. And they're building communities that are passionate, positive, and deeply invested. We're in a golden age of indie development. Every year we get new classics, games that take risks, make us feel something, and remind us why we fell in love with gaming in the first place. So next time you're feeling let down by the latest AAA disappointment, skip the hype machine. Go explore the indie section. Support a small team. take a chance on a weird idea. You might just find your new favorite game. If you like this video and you want to keep in touch, let me know in the comments down below. What are some of your favorite indie games to play? Are there any I didn't mention in this video? And if you liked what you watched, hit that like button, hit subscribe, hit the taco bell. I also wanted to mention I have a membership feature on the channel where if you join, you get some cool perks. $2 a month, can't go wrong. And if you want to vote on future video topics, I'm going to be posting polls, so watch out for that. And if you're not a member already and you feel like joining, go ahead and hit join down below the video. And if you don't want to join, that's perfectly fine. I ain't gonna force you, and I'm just happy you're here anyway. Thank you so much for watching as always, and thank you all for the support. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.